War in Ukraine. Ukraine live briefing. Kyiv invites UN nuclear watchdog to investigate Russia's dirty bomb claims. Ukraine invited United Nations nuclear inspectors to investigate claims made by Russia's defense minister that Kyiv is preparing to use a dirty bomb on its own territory with Western help. The United States, Britain, and France rejected the allegations as transparently false, and Ukraine accused Russia of attempting to create a pretext for escalating the conflict. Monday also marks 8 months since Russia invaded Ukraine on February 24, and the war grinds on. Here's the latest on the war and its ripple effects across the globe. Key developments. Ukraine's foreign minister invited the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Mariano Grossi, to urgently send experts to peaceful facilities in Ukraine which Russia deceitfully claims to be developing a dirty bomb. Dmytro Kuleba said on Twitter Monday that Grossi agreed. It's the latest development in a back-and-forth between Moscow, Kyiv and Western powers over Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu's unfounded claim that Ukraine is planning to use so-called dirty bombs, explosive weapons designed to widely disperse radioactive material in the war. The world would see through any attempt to use this allegation as a pretext for escalation, the US, British, and French foreign ministers said in a joint statement. We further reject any pretext for escalation by Russia, the Western diplomats added. Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons in 1994 in return for a guarantee from Russia that it would not attack Ukraine. The Kremlin doubled down on Shoigu's claims on Monday. During a news briefing, presidential spokesman Dmitry Peskov said of the joint statement by Ukraine's allies, their distrust does not mean that the threat of such a dirty bomb ceases to exist. The threat is obvious. This information was conveyed to the defense minister's interlocutors. It's up to them to believe it or not, presidential spokesman Dmitry Peskov said of the Western joint statement during a news briefing. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky accused Russia of manufacturing false threats in his nightly speech. If Russia calls and says that Ukraine is allegedly preparing something, it means one thing: Russia has already prepared all this, Zelensky said of Shoigu's claims. Analysts at the Institute for the Study of War said Shoigu's goal was probably to slow or suspend Western military aid to Ukraine and possibly weaken the NATO alliance. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi will represent the United States this week at a Crimea Platform Summit, a forum hosted by Ukraine and focused on the peninsula that Russia illegally annexed in 2014. She said she and other leaders will deliver an unmistakable statement of our solidarity with Ukraine in its fight for freedom. 2. Battleground updates. Ukrainian efforts to defeat Iranian-made drones used by Russia on the battlefield are increasingly successful, the British Defense Ministry said, citing claims by Zelensky that Ukrainian forces are intercepting up to 85% of the unmanned aerial vehicles' attempted strikes. Ukrainian and U.S. officials say Russia has procured Shahed-136 kamikaze drones from Iran, which Tehran denies. Russia is likely having to use more of the drones as a substitute for Russian-manufactured long-range precision weapons, which are becoming increasingly scarce. Ukraine still faces widespread power outages and cuts after Russian strikes pummeled the country's energy infrastructure in recent days. Ukrenergo, the national electric transmission company, said it was forced to impose caps on electricity supply to 7 regions of Ukraine, including around the capital, Kyiv, which will face some of the strictest restrictions. The company said the controlled blackouts would help its crews repair the equipment damaged by the strikes. Russian-installed officials in the occupied city of Kherson invited male residents to join a militia tasked with defending the city as Moscow continues to order tens of thousands of residents to immediately leave in preparation for a Ukrainian counteroffensive. Kyiv's forces hope to retake Kherson, the first major Ukrainian city Russian forces captured after invading the country. 3. Global impact. Ukrainians should choose the moment and the terms of peace in the war with Russia, French President Emmanuel Macron said at a conference in Italy. Macron, who has previously encouraged dialogue with Moscow, said Europe's balancing act of countering Russia while avoiding direct involvement in the conflict had created the conditions for Ukrainians to choose peace. Kyiv earlier this month ruled out talks with Russia after it illegally annexed 4 Ukrainian regions. Ukraine's infrastructure ministry accused Russia of deliberately delaying its grain initiative, the agency said in a Sunday Facebook post, reporting that ports were operating at 25 to 30% of their capacity. Ships of foodstuff and fertilizer leaving Ukraine under a United Nations brokered arrangement have been vital to keeping global food prices down and averting worldwide famine, officials have said. But Ismini Pala, a UN spokeswoman for the Black Sea Grain Initiative, said in a statement to the Washington Post that more than 150 vessels are waiting near Istanbul to move, and that the Joint Coordination Center, which includes representatives from the UN, Russia, Turkey, and